odd. Could there actually be a white moose around? We saw those white hares back there. I have never seen a white moose. I've heard about them. I've heard they're in Alberta.
The idea of a white moose was tantalizing, and we searched for several weeks. A true white moose is caused by a recessive gene, the Armstrong white gene. During our searches, we found several more clumps of white hairs. It seemed like there was too much evidence. However, reality was about to hit, and with a not-so-pretty truth. The majority of the moose that we've spotted over the years are typical moose with chocolate brown fur, and we still saw numerous hairs that were brown. While examining these hairs, I actually ended up holding the likely cause. Yes, this is a tick, specifically the moose tick or winter tick, and it can be a big problem for the moose, as moose are not as adept at grooming themselves like other ungulates such as deer or elk. And, as the name suggests, the winter ticks hang on for the winter, engorging into bloated spheres before dropping off in the spring. You can see some on the hindquarters of this moose, along with the patchy gray-looking fur. The ticks make the moose itchy, and they will scratch themselves to the point of breaking the long guard hairs, leaving grayish fur underneath. This moose was one that I saw in the Whitemud Creek Valley, not far from home and right in Edmonton. You can see her neck and back were quite affected and are a ghostly white. She has also rubbed herself to the point of being almost bald on her neck, and looked more like a camel than a moose to me. If you see one of these affected moose, keep in mind they can be quite irritable, so it's a good idea to give them some space. After dropping off around in April, the ticks lay eggs and then die. The young nymphs hatch and then begin questing, where they climb up vegetation and wait for an animal to pass by. Researchers have found that the nymphs will hang on to each other, increasing the chance that they will be picked up, and possibly in the hundreds. Fortunately, at this time, the moose tick does not carry any diseases that affect humans, but I think I might have actually run into one of these clumps of ticks a number of years ago, as I found dozens of tiny ticks walking on my coat after I had gone through some heavy brush. This is another good reason not to go off trail when hiking. And of course, it's also a good idea to always do a tick check when you're done hiking. So, back to the moose. The more severe the infestation, the more severe the impacts on the moose's health. And a heavy infestation can leave a moose weakened and even cause them to die during the winter. Fortunately for the two moose we spotted, they seemed to be doing okay, and survived the winter as the snow was mostly melted by the time we saw them. The moose I saw in the creek valley definitely seemed hungry, and even though she had looked at me, I was far enough away that she felt safe to keep browsing. Even still, she looked thin, but hopefully with the budding vegetation, she'll be able to put on some weight and grow some new fur. I had a theory at one point that urban wildlife might have less parasites than their rural counterparts. This theory was quickly debunked, as researchers have found that urban wildlife may actually have more parasites due to the stress of living among humans. I watched my white moose quietly disappear into the forest, and it wasn't until several days later when I went back into the valley that I found the copious amounts of hair that she had scratched off. From my own observations, I have never noticed ticks on moose before, so I wonder if the ticks are expanding in their range due to climate change, or possibly it was just a particularly bad year for the moose. Either way, it's definitely something to be mindful of, and a reason to give wildlife space so they can exist and not be stressed by too much contact with humans. I am still hopeful that one day I will see a truly white moose. As always, thanks for watching.